I never thought my 27th birthday would be the day I became homeless. I also never thought it would be the day I started a war that would end with my parents in handcuffs and my brother sleeping on the street. But looking back, I realize they didn't just break my heart that night. They handed me the match to burn their entire world down. And the funniest part? They handed it to me while eating the cake I paid for. It started at 7 p.m. I was sitting at the head of the dining table in the house I had lived in for the last 5 years. The house I had spent every weekend painting, fixing, and maintaining. My mother, Linda, was cutting slices of a generic grocery store sheet cake, while my father, Robert, refused to make eye contact with me. My younger brother, Troy, the family's golden child, was leaning back in his chair, scrolling on his phone, looking bored. "Make a wish," my mom said, sliding a paper plate toward me. Her voice had that sickly sweet tone she used whenever she was about to ask for money. I blew out the candles. I wished for a quiet year. I wished for stability. "So," my dad said, finally looking up. He cleared his throat and reached under the table. He didn't pull out a gift. He pulled out a manila envelope. He slid it across the mahogany table, the table I bought with my first bonus check. "We have some news, and we think it's best if we just rip the Band-Aid off." I reached for the envelope, my stomach tightening. "What is this?" "Troy is in a bit of a situation," Mom interrupted, placing a hand on Troy's shoulder. Troy smirked, not looking up from his phone. "His girlfriend is pregnant. They need stability. They need space to raise a family." "Okay," I said, confused. "Congratulations, Troy, but what does that have to do with me?" "He needs the house, Betty," Dad said. He said it so casually, as if asking me to pass the salt. "The apartment he's in is too small, and with the baby coming, he can't afford the rent. We've decided it's best if you move out so Troy and his new family can take over the property." The room went silent. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I looked at the envelope. It was a typed eviction notice. 30 days. "You're joking," I whispered. "You're kicking me out of my own home?" "It's not your home, Betty," Troy chimed in, finally looking at me with that arrogant grin I'd hated since we were kids. "Mom and Dad bought it. You're just staying here." "I pay the mortgage," I said, my voice shaking. "I paid for the new roof. I paid for the HVAC system last summer. I paid off the lien you guys had on a property 3 years ago." "And that was rent," Mom snapped, her face hardening. "You were helping the family, but now your brother needs the house more than you. You're single, you have a good job, you can afford a nice apartment downtown. Troy needs a leg up." I looked at them, really looked at them. I saw the entitlement in my mother's eyes, the cowardice in my father's, and the sheer malice in Troy's. They truly believed they had the right to do this. They had conveniently forgotten the paperwork we signed 5 years ago. They had forgotten that due to their terrible credit score, they couldn't get the loan refinancing they needed to save the house from foreclosure. I had stepped in. I had used my credit, and in exchange, the deed had been transferred to my name. I could have fought them right there. I could have run upstairs, grabbed the deed from my safe, and slammed it on the table. But as I looked at Troy's smug face, something in me shifted. If I fought them now, it would just be a screaming match. They would gaslight me, guilt-trip me, and make my life a living hell while staying under my roof. No, they wanted the house, they could have it, but they were going to get exactly what they paid for. "Okay," I said softly. Troy's eyebrows shot up. "Okay, just like that?" "Just like that," I said. I stood up, leaving the cake untouched. "The notice says 30 days. But you know what? Since it's urgent, since there's a baby coming, I'll be out by tomorrow night." Mom clapped her hands together. "Oh, Betty, thank you. I knew you'd understand. It's just the right thing to do." "Yeah, thanks, sis," Troy laughed. "Leave the big TV, will you? Moving's a hassle." I smiled at him, a cold, tight smile. I'll see what I can do. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I packed. But I didn't just pack my clothes. I packed everything. I took the shower curtains, I took the toilet paper holders, I took the light bulbs out of every single socket, leaving the house in darkness. I unscrewed the switch plates, I took the batteries out of the smoke detectors. I packed the Wi-Fi router, the modem, and the smart thermostat off the wall. By 6 p.m. the next day, the house was a hollow shell. My friend Marcus, a lawyer who had been warning me about my leeching family for years, helped me load the last box into the truck. "You sure you don't want to tell them?" Marcus asked, glancing at the house. "Not yet," I said. "Let them have their victory lap." As we pulled out of the driveway, Troy's leased sports car pulled in. He honked at us, waving dismissively. I checked my watch, 6:30 p.m. I drove straight to the utility company's local office. I walked up to the counter and placed my ID down. "Hi, I'm the property owner for 42 Oak Street. I vacated the premises as of today. I'd like to conduct an immediate disconnect of all services: power, water, gas." The clerk typed for a moment. "Do you want to transfer billing to the new tenants?" I paused. No, they didn't fill out an application with me. Just cut it, tonight. "It'll be off in an hour," she said. I went to a hotel that night, ordered room service, and waited. The first call came at 8:15 p.m. It was Mom. "Betty, what did you do?" she shrieked into the phone. "I moved out, Mom, like you asked," I said calmly. "It's pitch black in here. The water isn't running. Troy can't flush the toilet. He has friends coming over for a housewarming party in 20 minutes. "Oh, that's terrible," I said. "Well, since it's Troy's house, I assumed he set up his own utilities. I couldn't keep them in my name if I don't live there. That would be fraud." "You did this on purpose," she screamed. "Fix it. Turn it back on right now." "I can't," I lied. "Once it's disconnected, the new tenant has to go down in person, pay a deposit, and set it up. It usually takes, 3 to 5 business days." I heard Troy in the background cursing. "I don't have a deposit. My credit score is 400. "Sounds like a problem for the homeowner," I said, and hung up. I blocked their numbers for the rest of the night. I slept like a baby. The next morning, I unblocked them. I had 37 missed calls and a string of abusive texts. But I wasn't done. See, I knew my brother. Troy wasn't just lazy, he was destructive. And I knew my parents. They were enablers. I sent a text to Mom and Dad. "Since you are occupying the property, I am formally acting as the landlord. Per the lease agreement implied by your residency, I will be conducting a property inspection in 24 hours to assess the condition of the home." Mom texted back immediately. "You are not the landlord. We are. You're just a name on a piece of paper. Stay away or I'm calling the police." I sent back a photo of the deed, highlighting the line that said, "Sole owner, Elizabeth Ann Miller." "The police can read, Mom. See you tomorrow." I showed up the next day with Marcus. We brought clipboards and cameras. The moment we walked in, the smell hit us. In just 48 hours, Troy had already trashed the place. There were pizza boxes on the floor, beer stains on the carpet, and holes in the drywall where he had tried to mount a TV without a stud finder. But the biggest surprise wasn't the lack of a pregnant woman. "Where's the girlfriend, Troy?" I asked, stepping over a pile of laundry. Troy was sitting on a lawn chair in the living room because I had taken all the furniture. He looked sweaty and agitated. She's staying at her mom's until the power comes back on." "Likely story," Marcus muttered. I walked into the kitchen. "Troy, be honest. Is there a baby?" Troy stood up, his face red. "She left me, okay? She left me yesterday morning because I couldn't get the lights on. Are you happy? You ruined my family." I looked at Mom and Dad. I expected them to be furious that Troy had lied about the pregnancy, the entire reason they kicked me out. But they weren't looking at Troy with anger. They were looking at me. "Look what you did," Dad hissed. "You stressed him out so much his child was taken away. You're a monster, Betty." I stared at them, stunned. The delusion was absolute. In their minds, Troy could do no wrong. Even when he lied, it was my fault for exposing the lie. "Okay," I said, my voice icy. "Inspection failed. You have damages here. I'm documenting everything." "Get out," Troy screamed, throwing a soda can at the wall. We left, but as we walked to the car, Marcus tapped me on the shoulder. "Did you see the sledgehammer in the hallway?" I frowned. "Yeah, why?" And did you hear him talking about a gaming lounge? Marcus asked. Betty, I think he's planning to knock down the wall between the living room and the dining room. My blood ran cold. That was a load-bearing wall. Let him, I said. I still have access to the security sensors. I hid them inside the vents. If he touches that wall, we'll know. 2 days later, my phone pinged. The vibration sensor in the living room ceiling was going off. I opened the app on my phone. The audio feed came through crisp and clear. Crack, crack, crack. Yeah, this is gonna open up the whole space, bro. Open concept. Just smash it. I listened for 10 minutes as he destroyed the structural integrity of my house. I didn't call the police. I didn't call my parents. I called the city code. Enforcement office. Hi, I said. I'm the owner of a property, but I have a tenant who is currently performing unpermitted structural demolition on a load-bearing wall. I'm concerned the roof is going to collapse. The inspector arrived within the hour. I watched from down the street in my car. The inspector walked in, stayed for 5 minutes, and then marched out. He pasted a giant, bright red sticker on the front door. Unsafe structure. Do not occupy. Troy, Mom, and Dad followed him out, screaming. You can't do this, Dad yelled. The house is unstable, the inspector said, not breaking stride. You took out a primary support. Everyone out, now, or you go to jail. My phone rang. It was Mom. You called them, she shrieked. You called the city. I saved the house from falling on your heads, I replied. By the way, the fine for unpermitted work is $5,000 per day until it's fixed. And since I'm the owner, the city bills me. But since you caused the damage, I'll be suing you for the repairs. We don't have that kind of money, she cried. We spent our savings on Troy's deposit for the utilities. Better find it, I said, or Troy is going to have to get a job. The red tag meant they couldn't sleep there. They had to go to a cheap motel. But Troy, being the genius he was, decided the rules didn't apply to him. That night, he snuck back into the house. He needed money to fix the wall, or so he told our parents. I got a notification at 2 a.m. Motion detected. Attic. I frowned. Why was he in the attic? I turned on the camera feed. The attic was the one place I had left a camera, mostly to monitor for leaks. In the grainy night vision, I saw Troy prying open an old steamer trunk. My heart stopped. That was Grandma's trunk. When my grandmother passed away, she left everything to me, specifically excluding my parents, because she hated how they spoiled Troy. Inside that trunk were all her old financial papers, her diaries, and her will, the original copy. I watched as Troy pulled out the papers. He started reading. I saw his face twist in rage. He held up a document, the deed transfer confirmation from Grandma to me. It proved that the down payment came from her trust, not Mom and Dad's hard work. It proved that morally, as well as legally, the house was mine. She gave it all to her, Troy muttered. That old witch. He pulled a lighter out of his pocket. No, I whispered at my screen. Don't you dare. He lit the corner of the will. He threw it into a metal bucket he'd brought up. He watched my proof, my history, burn to ash. There, he laughed to himself. Now there's no proof. I hit the download button on the app. The video saved to my cloud. He thought he was destroying the evidence, but he was just manufacturing a felony. Arson, destruction of private property. I sent the video to Marcus immediately. Is this enough? I texted. It's enough, Marcus replied. But let's wait. If we strike now, he gets a slap on the wrist. Let's wait until he digs the hole deeper. The next week was a nightmare for my parents. They were bleeding money at the motel. The city was demanding repairs. Troy, claiming he was handling it, had actually invited 3 of his friends to squat in the red-tagged house with him. They covered the windows with black sheets. They were running a generator in the backyard to power their gaming rigs. The neighbors were furious. They were messaging me on Facebook, calling me a slumlord. Your house is a blight, Mrs. Higgins next door wrote. There are strange men coming and going at all hours. It smells like skunkweed. Fix this. I knew I had to act, but I needed to turn the public opinion. My parents had been posting their own sob stories, claiming I had abandoned them and that the city was harassing them for no reason. I decided to go nuclear. I wrote a post on the community Facebook page. To my neighbors on Oak Street, I am deeply sorry for the disturbance. As many of you know, my parents and brother evicted me from my own home 2 weeks ago. Since then, they have destroyed the structural integrity of the house, resulting in a red tag. Currently, my brother Troy is illegally squatting in the property. I have tried to handle this privately, but for your safety, I must be transparent. I attached 2 videos. The first was the security footage from the eviction dinner, where they cruelly kicked me out. The second was the video of Troy burning Grandma's will in the attic. The reaction was instant. The post was shared 500 times in an hour. The comments section turned into a shark tank. The entire town turned on them. Disgusting parents. That boy is a criminal. Betty, we are calling the police for you every time we hear a pin drop. And they did. The police were called for noise complaints 5 times in 2 days. But Troy wouldn't leave. He claimed squatters' rights. He told the officers he had a lease, a lie, and that this was a civil matter. The police, frustrated, said their hands were tied. But I knew something the police didn't. One of Troy's friends, a guy named Sketch, had a warrant out for his arrest in the next county. And I knew exactly when they got their deliveries. I waited for Friday night. The generator was humming, music was thumping. I called the non-emergency line, but I asked for the narcotics division. "Hi," I said. "I am the owner of 42 Oak Street. I have authorized entry for a canine unit. I have reason to believe there is a significant amount of distribution happening on my property by illegal squatters. I am meeting you there with the keys." I drove over. The street was lined with cruisers. I handed the sergeant the key. "Be careful," I said. "The living room wall is unstable." They kicked the door in. It was chaos. Troy and his friends tried to flush the stash, but the water was still off. The canine unit found 3 pounds of product hidden in the sofa cushions. They found cash, thousands of dollars, stuffed in the kitchen cabinets. They dragged Troy out in handcuffs. He was screaming, "It's not mine! It's my sister's house! It's her drugs!" The sergeant looked at me. I was standing on the sidewalk, dressed in a business suit, holding a folder of legal documents. "Yeah," the sergeant said dryly. "She looks like the kingpin here, kid. Get in the car." Troy was charged with possession with intent to distribute, criminal trespassing, and vandalism. His bail was set at $50,000. This is where my parents truly destroyed themselves. Instead of letting him sit in jail and learn a lesson, they panicked. They couldn't get a bail bond because they had no collateral. I owned the house. So Dad did the unthinkable. He went to the bank the next morning. He tried to take out a high-interest personal loan, but his credit was shot. So he filled out a loan application using my name and social security number, which he had memorized from when I was a child. He tried to forge my signature. He didn't know that after the eviction, I had put a credit freeze and a fraud alert on all my accounts. I was at work when the bank called. "Miss Miller, we have a gentleman here, a Robert Miller, attempting to take out a $50,000 loan in your name. He says he has your permission." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This was it, the final nail. "I did not give permission," I said clearly. "That is identity theft. Please stall him. I'm sending the police." I drove to the bank. I walked in just as the officers were putting handcuffs on my father. He looked small, old. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "Betty," he pleaded, "it's for your brother. He can't survive in jail. You have to help us. Just tell them you authorized it." "I can't do that, Dad," I said. "He broke the law, and now so have you." "We're your family," Mom screamed from the waiting area, where she was watching in horror. "How can you be so cold?" "You taught me," I said. "You taught me that need is more important than ownership. Well, I need justice more than I need parents." With Dad in jail for fraud and Troy in jail for drugs, Mom was left alone. She had no money. The motel kicked her out. She ended up staying on a friend's couch, calling me every day, leaving weeping voicemails about how I had orphaned them. I didn't listen to them. I was too busy with the house. I walked through the wreckage of my home. It was destroyed. The walls were smashed, the carpets ruined, the smell unbearable. It would take tens of thousands of dollars to fix. I realized I didn't want to fix it. The memories were poisoned. I called a We Buy Ugly Houses investor. I sold it as is for a cash offer. It was under market value, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be free. But there was one last twist. Before the sale closed, I went to clear out the last of the debris. I went into Troy's old bedroom, the room he had kicked me out of. I started ripping up the carpet he had stained. Underneath the floorboards, I found a loose plank. I pried it up. Inside was a metal box. I opened it. It was full of jewelry. Mom's jewelry. The pieces she claimed had been stolen by a cleaner years ago. The pieces she had blamed me for losing when I was a teenager. Troy had stolen them. He had been stealing from them for years, hoarding wealth while they drained their accounts to support him. I took the box. I used the money from the house sale to buy a beautiful condo in a gated community 3 towns over. I furnished it with modern, sleek furniture. I changed my number. I started therapy. 3 months later, the court case is concluded. Dad took a plea deal, 2 years of probation and a permanent felony record for fraud. Troy got 3 years in prison for the drugs and the probation violation. I decided to send my parents one final gift. I mailed a package to the small, run-down apartment Mom and Dad were now renting. Inside was the jewelry box I found under Troy's floor. I included a note. Found this in Troy's room. He had it the whole time. He didn't need the house. He needed better parents who wouldn't let him become a thief. Enjoy the apartment, Betty. I heard later from a cousin that when Mom opened the box and realized her golden child had been robbing her blind while she blamed everyone else, she finally broke. She didn't speak for a week. As for me, I'm sitting on my new balcony drinking coffee. My phone buzzes. It's a blocked number. I know who it is. I press decline. They say you can't choose non-friendly podcast. Choose your family, but you can certainly choose to evict them from your life. And let me tell you, the peace and quiet, it's priceless.